offer. How prepared are agencies charged with the election process? Join John Kuria and Safina Chieng on Kenya Decides. This and every Tuesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 as we unpack elections 2022 with a panel of various stakeholders. Make informed electoral decisions.
Pili, na lapa ni wako hapa nyuma. Unaendeleaje?
Better without you all over my face.
Lakini kama leo hakutaki, sikwambie tu.
Hata sio kwa kufikiria watu kualika watu kama hivi.
Kufanya hii sherehe limeniudhi sana.
Wenyewe wanasema kila soko lina mwenda wazimu wake. Naona yule ndo wetu hapa.
I can hear you. Good afternoon. Welcome to this live broadcast of the National Assembly afternoon sitting on this day of the 7th of June, the year 2022. This live broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Lined up for debate and consideration by the members of the National Assembly this afternoon, there is a procedural motion by the leader of a majority party that seeks the extension of sitting time until conclusion of specified business. In this case, that the House orders that should the time appointed for adjournment of the House be reached before conclusion of business, that particular business is a motion on the report on the financial statements of the state corporations, a motion by the Chairperson Public Investments Committee. The leader of majority is moving this procedural motion that should the House, the time appointed for the adjournment of the House be reached before conclusion of that particular business. In today's lined up business, the sitting of the House shall stand extended until the conclusion of the said business. In this case, the leader of majority is referring to the motion on the report on the financial statements of the state corporations by the Chairperson Public Investment Committee, that the House adopts the 24th report of the Public Investment Committee on its consideration of the Auditor General's reports on financial statements of state corporations that was laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, May 31st this year. So that is the first motion on the order paper this afternoon that members will be considering. There is also another procedural motion by the Chairperson Budget and Appropriations Committee that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 120, that the House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022, from 7 days to 4 days. The Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022, is scheduled for first reading on the floor of the House this afternoon. Again, it will also be read for the second time this afternoon, according to the lineup of business on the floor of the National Assembly this afternoon. And the objective of this bill is to provide for appropriation of monies for the 2022-2023 financial year. Some of the amendments to this particular bill is that the bill provides for issuance out of the consolidated fund of a sum of 1.6 trillion required to meet public expenditure during the financial year ending on 30th June 2023. The clause also appropriates the money granted for services and purposes specified in the schedule, which is based on the approved estimates for the year 2022-2023 financial year. There is also a clause that makes a provision for appropriations in aid of those services and purposes. There is also a clause that obligates the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury to ensure that the existing national debt and any sum issued and appropriated from the Consolidated Fund under this Act or any other law towards the supply granted for the service of the year ending 30th June 2023, that the national government funds through borrowing does not exceed the limit set by the Parliament. So the Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022 is set to be read for the first time, as well as the second time this afternoon, and there is a procedural motion by the Chairperson Budget and Appropriations Committee, Honorable Kanini Kega, that the publication period for that particular bill be reduced from 7 days to 4 days. It is a procedural motion that members of the National Assembly will this afternoon be considering. Members of the National Assembly again will this afternoon be considering a motion of the Committee of the Whole House on the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022. This is a motion by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, that the House agrees with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022. A debate on this particular bill was concluded last week, and this afternoon a question will be put to this bill, and the bill will proceed to third reading. The Finance Bill seeks to amend a number of laws. These laws include the Evidence Act, Cap number 80, and the bill proposes to amend a section of the Evidence Act to accommodate all officers involved in administering tax laws as set out in the first schedule of the Kenya Revenue Act. The Capital Markets Act, Cap 485A, will also be amended to address the shortage of investment advisory services being experienced across the country due to the restrictive nature of the Act, by expanding the spectrum of persons who may act as investment advisors in offering the much-needed investment advisory services. The Insurance Act, Cap 487, will also undergo a few amendments to align the section. The section that will undergo amendment is Section 10, Subsection 4 and 8 of the Insurance Act, to align the section with Section 21A of the Act. The Unclaimed Financial Assets Act will also undergo some amendments to introduce capping penalties and interest to the value of asset found to be portable and deliverable. This is meant to address the cases where the asset may increase beyond the value of the asset, thus discouraging compliance to avoid penalties. Those are some of the laws proposed to undergo some amendments in the Finance Bill 2022. So this motion will be considered this afternoon on the report of the Committee of the Whole House on the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022 by the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. A debate was concluded and a question will be put and the bill will proceed for third reading. Members of the National Assembly will this afternoon also be debating the Traffic Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2021. This is a bill by the Chairperson Committee on Delegated Legislation, a bill that is on its second stage. A question will be put this afternoon. The Traffic Amendment Bill 2021 seeks to align the Traffic Act Cap 403 with the Constitution to facilitate implementation of traffic laws and regulations. The bill also seeks to provide a framework for development of strategies to ensure that operations in the traffic sector are conducted in compliance with the prevailing regulations. The bill further seeks to harmonize the provisions of Principal Act, the National Transport Safety Act, number 33 of 2012, and the regulations made under the Act with other traffic-related laws for the safety of road users and the general public. It is a bill that is on its second stage on the floor of the National Assembly, a bill that has 6 clauses that are proposing amendments to the Traffic Act Cap 403 and a number of laws on this particular bill. The National Assembly Speaker, Honorable Justin Muturi, is at the entrance of the chambers. He will be presiding over this afternoon sitting. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast brought to you by Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Kamchemenza. Good afternoon.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come at our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, that will advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests were committed to our church. Amen. How many are we here? What I'm going to do, begin doing this one. No. We'll leave and do now. And then
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
I can tell that the member for Oraka is making his way into the house. Honourable members, I wish to introduce to you a delegation consisting of the members of the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, APNAC, Zimbabwe chapter from the Parliament of Zimbabwe, who are seated in the Speaker's room. They are in a delegation that comprises the following. 1, the Honorable Temba Peter Msiliwa, MP, Chairperson and Leader of Delegation. 2, the Honorable Shandrak Mataranyika, MP, Vice Chairperson. 3, the Honorable Pauline Mpariwa, MP, Member. The Honorable Manzimure Williams, MP, Member. The Honorable Saruwaka Trevor, MP, Member. The Honorable Coletta Mutambisi, MP, Member. The Honorable Precious M. Chinhamo, MP, Member. Ms. Atapiwa Chiremba, Committee Clerk. Ms. Ajeline Gutu, Committee Clerk. And Ms. Beverly Chinyama, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer. The delegation is in the country on a benchmarking visit, specifically to share experiences with their counterparts in APNAC Kenya chapter, ably led by the Honorable Shakir Shabil, with a view to exchanging views, sharing information, lessons, and best practices in the fight against corruption. Honourable members, on my own behalf and that of the National Assembly, I welcome them to Parliament and wish them fruitful engagements during the course of their stay in the country. I thank you, honourable members.
Order number 3, messages.
Honourable members, standing order number 41, subsection 4, requires the Speaker to report to the House any message received from the Senate. In this regard, I wish to report to the House that on the 2nd of June 2022, I received a message from the Senate regarding its rejection of all amendments made by the National Assembly to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020. Honourable members, the message reads, and I quote, that the Senate on Wednesday, 18th May 2022, considered a motion for consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020, and rejected the National Assembly's amendments. Close the quotes. Honourable members, you will recall that there were 2 bills proposing to legislate on regulation, development, and promotion of the coffee industry. These are the Coffee Bill, National Assembly Bill number 17 of 2021, sponsored by the leader of the majority party, and the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020, which originated in the Senate, having been sponsored by the Senate majority leader. To expedite the bicameral consideration of the proposed legislation, the leader of the majority party in the National Assembly stood down his bill in favor of the Senate bill. It was, however, agreed that part of the provisions in the version of the bill sponsored by the leader of the majority party in the National Assembly be incorporated in the Senate bill as amendments at committee stage. That turn of members indeed took place when the bill was considered at committee of the whole House. Thereafter, the bill was read a third time on 13th of April 2022, and the schedule to the National Assembly's amendments referred to the Senate in keeping with the requirements of our standing orders. Honourable members, it is the particular schedule to the National Assembly's amendments that the Senate has rejected. This decision of the Senate essentially implies that the Coffee Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2020, now stands referred to the mediation process contemplated under Article 112 of the Constitution. Honourable members, in his message to the National Assembly, the Right Honourable Speaker of the Senate also conveys that he has appointed the following senators to the mediation committee on the bill in accordance with the provisions of Article 113 of the Constitution. 1. Senator Gerald Dwiga. 2. Senator Enoch Wambua. 3. Senator Naomi Wako. 4. Senator Dr. Isaac Mwaura. 5. Senator Dr. Ochilo Ayako. Honourable members, having consulted the leadership of the majority and the minority parties in the National Assembly, I hereby appoint the following members to represent the National Assembly in the Mediation Committee to consider the same bill, if at all there will be time to do so. 1. The Honourable Silas Itiren. 2. The Honourable Cecil Mbarire. 3. The Honourable Gabriel Kago. 4. The Honourable Martin Peters Ruino. And 5. The Honourable Joseph Kalasinga Wekesa. Honourable members, the committee is expected to speedily embark on the process of attempting to develop a mediated version of the bill in accordance with the provisions of Article 113 of the Constitution, notwithstanding the busy political schedules of most members ahead of the general elections on 9th of August. But I nevertheless urge the committee to find time to consider the bill and submit a report to both houses. I thank you, no members.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority party.
Yes, Honourable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June the 7th of 2022. 1, the African Union Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation, that's the Niamey Convention, and its explanatory memorandum. 2, the legal notice number 92 of 2022 relating to the Public Service Commission, County Appeals Procedures, Regulations of 2022. 3rd is the Treaty for the Establishment of the African Medicines Agency, the AMA, and its explanatory memorandum. The 4th, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission past quarterly report for the year ended 2022, covering the period from 1st of January 2022 to 31st of March 2022. 5th is a report of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the Sports Kenya for the year ended 30th of June 2020 and the certificates therein. Next is the national government guarantee on borrowing by issuance of infrastructure bond by the Laikipia County government. And next is the draft Salaries and Remuneration Commission, remuneration and benefits of state and other public officers, regulations of 2022. And lastly, the report of the Auditor General and financial statement in respect of the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund for the year ended 30th of June 2021 and the certificate therein. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Chairman of Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. That is the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of Supplementary Estimate 2 for the financial year 2021-2022. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
There were some other papers to be tabled. Yes, Honorable Gladwell Tungo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 7, 2022. Report of the Departmental Committee on Energy on its consideration of a public petition number 005 of 2022 by Consumer Federation of Kenya regarding operations of the open tender system for importation of fuel products. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
There was another report that I have approved. Where is that schedule?
I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable, yes, the chair of Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, and congratulations for you are the first one to bring an exit report. Congratulations.
Thank you, Speaker.
The chairs of other committees, you are encouraged to borrow a leaf from the Honorable Kosing.
Thank you.
It means that also your secretariats have gone to bed. The Honorable TJ Kajuan, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, exit report by tomorrow. The Transport Committee has done very well, Honorable Kosing.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. And of course, you know what this committee has been doing. It's one of the most effective committee.
Indeed, it is. And I can see another chairman who is not even paying attention. I don't think whether he has prepared an exit report. This chairman.
You know, he was a mayor. He has not maybe learned. But however, Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. Exit report of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing for the 12th Parliament, 2017-2022. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I thank you for appreciating my committee. It will be in record that my committee is the first, and it will stay in that record forever. Thank you.
The chair of a committee on National Government Constituencies Development Fund. It is indicated that the chair of National Government Constituencies Development, Honorable Safula, please, if you could stay on a bit. I know you may wish to disappear, but please, honorable members, I think let's just develop a way of being able to sit in the House for about 1 hour. I know it is a difficult time, especially for those that may be under threat in the villages. Yeah? But please, you know, tell them to allow you to sit here the last week. You know, you'll be with them for a long time. And, you know, and if they decide to detain you there, they will be with them forever. So just stay here. Stay here. You are safer here. The chair of National Government Constituencies Development Fund, exit report. The chairperson, Parliamentary Caucus on Business and Economy. This is another caucus which has also done very well. They have an exit report. Who's the chairperson? Is this the Honorable Judy Jomo? The chair of the Parliamentary Caucus on Business and the Economy. He's not present, but they have prepared a very good report, exit report. The Honorable Suleika Hassan, on behalf of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. Report of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs on its consideration of the Supreme Court Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 15 of 2022.
No, please. Let's not. Don't. Even if somebody wears whatever decoration, let them wear. This is the last week. This is the last week of the 12th Parliament. Please. On. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
The chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that this House adopt the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the supplementary aspect 2 for the financial year 2021-2022 laid on the table of the House Tuesday, June 7th, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 223 of the Constitution and Standing Order 243A1, approves Kenya shilling 27,257,307,265 for the financial year 2021-2022 spent under Article 223 of the Constitution and it's as contained in the attached Schedule 3. 2. Approves an increment of the total expenditure for the financial year 2021-2022 by Kenya shilling 70,847,524,597, being current estimates of Kenya shilling 65,012,661,186 and a capital estimates of Kenya shilling 5,861,863,411 in respect of the votes as contained in the attached schedule. And 3. Resolves that the attached schedules forms the basis for the introduction of the second supplementary Appropriations Bill 2022. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honourable members, for the convenience of the House, and having noticed that there are a number of you who don't have capacity to sit for more than 10 minutes, let me rearrange the business so that we are able to take certain decisions which the Constitution demands. We can only do so when we have certain thresholds of us. And now I have been reliably informed by the clerk that we now quorate. I therefore rearrange the business so that we go to business number appearing as under number 10 and number 11 and 12. So move the next.
Order number 10, motion, report of the Committee of the Old House on the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022, question to be put on third reading.
Please, let me clear this. Let me clear. Shakir. Other members, we are going to deal with the business appearing as under number 10, which is putting the question and third reading of the finance bill. And I therefore put the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the finance bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Chair. Unapoyenya. Oh gosh, give him. You don't have your phone, your number, your card is not working. You.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish Mr. Speaker to propose that the report, to move that the report on of the committee, that the finance bill and the National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022 be now read at that time, and I wish to invite Honorable Wangwe to support, to second.
Honorable Wangwe. Honorable Wangwe. Oh, sorry. What is happening?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I do second.
Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that this House do agree that the finance bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022, be read at one time. So the House, I put the question, which I hereby do, that the finance bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2022, be now read a third time. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Yeah.
A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the laws relating to various taxes and duties and for matters incidental thereto.
Next order.
Order number 11, the Traffic Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2021. Question to be put.
Honourable members, debate on this bill was concluded last week. What remains is a question to be put, which I hereby do. That the Traffic Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2021, be now read a second time. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Traffic Act, Cap 403, and for connected purposes.
Sorry. No, the leader thing is not.
Order number 12, report of the Committee of the Whole House on the amendments to the standing orders.
Honourable members, Honourable Amin. You know, these are very tempting periods, Honourable Amin. But the information I have is that you have no reason to worry a lot. Honourable members, as you recall, last week you had your marathon session of 6 hours, considering the standing orders for the next parliament. And therefore, having consulted, and I'm informed that the chairperson, who is the deputy speaker, and the leader of the majority party have consulted, and the leader of the majority party has dropped his proposal for recometo. I therefore, honour members, I therefore put the question, which is that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the whole House on its consideration of the amendments to the National Assembly Standing Orders, and notes its resolution made on June 2nd, 2022, 1, that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 265, the amendments made to the Standing Orders shall commence upon the expiry of the term of the 12th Parliament, and 2, that despite paragraph 1 above, the proposed new Standing Order 259F, subsection 5, relating to members' biodata and roll, shall take effect immediately. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 8, procedural motion, extension of sitting time until conclusion of specified business.
Well, now, Honorable Kisang, now that I can see you are through with your afternoon sitting, at least you can tell the villagers that you have made standing orders for the next parliament, where I believe you intend to be an active member. Proceed, Leader of Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order number 33A, this House orders that should the time appointed for adjournment of the House be reached before conclusion of the business appearing under Order number 18, on today's order paper, the sitting of the House shall stand extended until the conclusion of the said business. Honorable Speaker, as members are aware, we are living in very difficult times. We only have tomorrow and the day after tomorrow to conclude the business of the 12th session, and hence it will be good if we could clear as much as possible on the pending business that we believe is critical for this House and can be done. Honorable Speaker, as I move this extension, I want to recognize that last week the House did sit up to midnight, and it was very commendable to see members dedicated and transacting business for the nation up to that time. And especially I want to commend the member for Kikuyu, member for Garissa. I saw them in the House, and the Honorable Kandie, and a few others who are there, and the member for Edebes. And I'm sure they'll be here until midnight today. I
doubt that the Honorable Kandie was there.
Yeah. He was there for some time.
He was there for some time, eh?
And then he was there in spirit. But I think that it's so heartwarming to see members staying this long, especially as we come to the tail end. And because by the time we get through to, the PIC report, it will be good at least to ensure that we can recognize the good work that's been done by PSC, which is appearing at Standing Order Order number 18, and as we go home, that report will have at least been discussed by this House. So, Honorable Speaker, really I don't want to belabor the point. It's straightforward. It's a request to the members, because if we're able to finish everything, then on Thursday we go home. We don't have to think of extending to next week to be in tandem with the other House. and then we can go on campaign. So, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and ask the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, member for Kikuyu, who stood in this house and was there, to repeat the magic and to second this motion.
Honorable Ichung'wah.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to second the procedural motion and indeed commend the leader of majority that even from London he could be watching up to midnight the important business we were transacting. I second, Honorable Speaker. Because they put the question.
Member for Aldamaraville. Honour members, just to draw your attention to the existence of a supplementary order paper. So the order that the Honourable Leader of Majority made reference to is actually now order number 19. I propose the question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 30, subsection 3, paragraph A, this House orders that should the time appointed for adjournment of the House be reached before conclusion of business appearing as order number 19 on today's order paper, the sitting of the House shall stand extended until the conclusion of the said business. Yeah, you know, when the motion for amendment of the standing orders was being considered, I think the member for Endebess was not present, because I'm sure there are some amendments which were effected to standing order number 95. In the committee, yes. Therefore, honour members, I put the question, which is that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 30, subsection 3, paragraph A, this House orders that should the time appointed for adjournment of the House be reached before conclusion of business appearing under order number 19 on today's order paper, the sitting of the House shall stand extended until the conclusion of the said business. Will as many as that opinion say aye? As many as contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Honour members, just also to announce that before we go to the next motion, that I have also permitted the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, the Honourable Wandai, that should he be ready with his report for the 2019-2020 National Government Accounts, report of the Auditor General on the national government expenditure and accounts, he will be at liberty to table that report and give notice, because the Honourable Wandai has given an indication that he desires that before the House adjourns sine die, this House should have concluded consideration of that other report. Therefore, whatever time. Next.
Order number 9, procedural motion, reduction of publication period for a specified bill.
Honourable Kamket, you have a point of order.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker. Actually, I just needed your clarification, and perhaps for the interest of this House. The other week, Mr. Speaker, this House approved, among others, His Excellency Michael Rotich Chalai as the ambassador to Kenya's High Commissioner to Namibia. And I just want clarification, Mr. Speaker, because while he's a very good friend of mine, I have no problem with him sitting here, but could it be that his appointment was revoked, or what am I seeing? Am I seeing double? Because this is His Excellency the President's representative to Namibia, and he's here doing some small job.
Honourable Kamket, that is not a point of order, surely. Honourable Kamket, Mr. Selai, as a contract with us, which extends up to 31st of July. So notwithstanding any other engagements, he is still at liberty to continue serving this House. And I think we are much happier that way, and that way much richer with this. Correct. So, next order.
Number 9, procedural motion, reduction of publication period for a specified bill.
Chair, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022 from 7 days to 4 days. Honorable Speaker, as clearly alluded to by the Leader of Majority, we might be here for the next 2 or 3 days, Honorable Speaker, and if we go by the 7 days, it might be practically impossible for us to conclude the budget, because basically it is the budget for the financial year 2022-2023 for the next government, and also we also want to release the members to go and campaign. So with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request Honorable Wangwe to second.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I do second.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that notwithstanding the provision Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022, from 7 days to 4 days. Desire of the House, I put the question, which I hereby do, that notwithstanding the provision Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Appropriations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022 from 7 days to 4 days. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order number 13, the Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to authorize the issue of a sum of money out of the consolidated fund and its application towards the service of the year ending on the 30th of June 2023, and to appropriate that sum and a sum voted on account by the National Assembly for certain public services and purposes. Order number 14, the Appropriation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2022, second reading.
Very well. For avoidance of doubt, so that some members do not raise any issues, remember this is a money bill, and it can proceed to all stages. It does not require leave of the House. So, but before we move to that, maybe the Chair of Budget. when we know it's busy, it does not make it, then application, then traffic. When it's not later, Now, honour members, after consultations, I wish to make the announcement that business appearing as order number 14 will be stayed, that is the Appropriations Bill number 31 of 2022, in second reading and in committee, so that to enable the House to debate the special motion appearing as order number 16, variation of public debt ceiling. This second supplementary, I think. Actually, it would have done even this. Yeah. Safe to make these announcements, honour members, that when we go to business appearing as number 15, which is Committee of the Whole House, there will be no consideration of the National Assembly standing orders. The proposal for recometo, which was from the Leader of Majority Party, has been withdrawn. There will be no recometo, no consideration of the Finance Bill, since the proposal for recometo has also been withdrawn. And therefore, numbers 1 and 5, Roman 5, appearing as in order number 15, Committee of the Whole House, will not be part of the business to be considered by the Committee of the Whole House. Secondly, there will be consideration of the business appearing as order number 4, Traffic Amendment Bill, with the leave of the House. It will be considered in Committee of the Whole House with the leave of the House. The Honourable Mover, the Honourable Kamket, has only one small amendment. So it will be, he proposes to move it, since you just voted for the bill in second reading today, but debate was concluded last week. So it will be considered in Committee of the Whole House, but with the leave of the House. Let me just make this one more announcement. Before the House proceeds now to that business, if and when it does, being a consideration of that, of the various bills in Committee of the Whole House, I have received amendments proposed by a nominated member, the Honourable Godfrey Osotsi, proposing to delete clause 3 of the bill, that's the traffic Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2021, and substitute the clause with a different provision. The proposed amendment seeks to repeal and replace Section 16 of Cap 403 to, among other things, require that all vehicles on Kenyan roads that have been operated for a period exceeding 4 years and from the date of manufacture be subjected to an annual inspection by the National Transport Safety Authority. They shall include emissions testing in accordance with the standard prescribed by the Kenya Bureau of Standards with a view to establishing the levels of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons emissions. The amendment also seeks to levy a fee on Kenyans for purposes of licensing under this act, under this part. Honourable members, my perusal of the amendment proposed by the nominated member is that while the amendment may look noble, as it is aimed at protecting the environment, it has far-reaching effects on the capacity of the NTSA to carry out this inspection annually, and which has not been established. In addition, with respect to the amendment on imposition of a fee to members of the public proposal, it has money bill effects as defined under Article 114 of the Constitution, as it will entail levying fees on Kenyans for purposes of licensing. In this regard, and in keeping with the provisions of Article 114, Clause 2 of the Constitution, which provides that on money bill motions, in quotes, the House may proceed only in accordance with the recommendations of the relevant committee after taking into account the views of the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, close the quotes. I regret that I will not permit the proposed amendments to be considered by the House. Further, Standing Order 133, Clause 5, prohibits amendments to bills that unreasonably or unduly expands the scope of the bill, taking into account the need for public participation as contemplated under Article 118 of the Constitution. Clearly, the proposals by the Honourable Sotsi would expand the scope of the bill to such an extent that the need for public participation would not be lost. Honourable members, for these reasons, I regret that I have disallowed the proposed amendments by the Honourable Godfrey Osotsi and order that the amendments by the member as contained in the order paper will not be proceeded with, and the House is accordingly guided. Thank you. Yes, honourable members, I think so as to allow for proper and logical flow of these finance-related matters, I think before we hear the Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee on his proposals in the Appropriations Bill, it is fair that we know that, first of all, he has capacity to finance his entire budget. So we go to business appearing as special motion, number 16.
Order number 16, special motion, variation of public debt ceiling.
Leader of Majority.
Yes. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Section 52 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, this House approves the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations 2022, published as legal notice number 89 of 26th of May 2022, thus approving the amendment made to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations of 2015 Principal Regulations in Regulation 26.1 by deleting paragraph C and substituting therefore the following paragraph. The new C to read, pursuant to the provisions of Section 52 of this Act, the public debt shall not exceed 10 trillion shillings. Honourable Speaker, as members will recall, when the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Planning appeared before this House to highlight the estimates and financing proposals for the financial year 2022-2023, he did allude to the fact that he would be making a proposal to the House to, in the first instance, to change the manner of computation of debt or debt limit as to be capped at 55% of the GDP. And thereafter, the draft was then tabled in the House and given to the Committee on Delegated Legislation, and consultations commenced as per Section 5 of the Statutory Instruments Act, which require that any regulatory making authority to consult in instances where the proposed regulation may have an indirect effect on business, among other reasons. And as the consultations were going on, it became very clear that even the proposed formula of 55% of GDP at net present value terms was making it much more complicated, and hence we needed to get to a situation where people can relate and say what exactly is our debt limit, rather than be pegged on is a net present value at rates that are being determined by different players. And without that standardization, then the committee did suggest that perhaps we need to go with what is known. We know the debt limit right now is 9 trillion. Let us look at what we need to do in the very interim to accommodate our financing requirements, to accommodate the issues that we have at hand, to sort out a limit that will accommodate the budget, that will accommodate the issues in this transitional phase. And in a year's time, in 2 years' time, the incoming government, whoever they will be, will be able to look at their programs and their financing needs and come to this very House and propose their issues. So this is the very interim measure that we are proposing here today. Because as we were looking at the BPS, members will remember, it became very clear that the proposed estimates within the BPS were going to overshoot the 9 trillion set ceiling by some figure. And even a shilling is overshooting. But the figure was in the order of 200 billion, 400 billion, and I think it has since shifted. And I'm sure the chair of budget will give us the exact figures in terms of that. So realistically, we are in this situation where we cannot do a budget for this country now unless we adjust our financing limitation that we put on ourselves. We've just passed the finance bill in this House. And I believe within the measures that taxation measures that have been proposed was to raise an extra 57 billion over and above what we were collecting last year. But this House has also looked at some of those measures and said they hurt the common man. They increased the ordinary pain of the ordinary Kenyan. And some of those have been reduced with the effect that they have reduced that projection of 57 billion to something like 32 billion. So we already know what we can get from taxation. We already know what we can collect from our tax revenues. And the balance must be what can only be financed realistically through borrowing. Hence, we know that whatever happens, we must be able to increase our budget, because the alternative would be to look at the total budget and slash the budget across the board by 600 billion. But what does that do to the incoming administration that will be voted in by Kenyans in August of 2022? It means that we will be giving them that this House has passed a budget that is unrealistic. It cannot be able to finance the operations by 600 billion, And because you can only vary the budget by 10%, what it means is that even in the best, at best if they bring a supplementary, it will need to increase by something close to 150 billion. And hence, we will have emasculated them by 400 billion. So the most important thing is we must remember that we are in a very unique situation. We are doing a budget for an administration that is out there planning, making its plans on what to do. But we must provide at least for the very basics. There are salaries to be paid. There is debt to be repaid. There is, there is the consolidated fund services, pensions to be paid, and all those things have to be budgeted by this House. In addition to the ongoing developmental programs, because if they get stuck, we are all in trouble. So this is really a very unique situation that we are in. And it's not unique to Kenya. Since the onset of COVID, we started seeing most countries getting into this situation where the capacity to raise revenue was constrained. The demands for extra expenditures was enhanced, and nobody really wants to think of debt. And this, the original dilemma of taxes versus debt was now expanded to this other trilemma that also we are having expanded spending. So, Honorable Speaker, it may look like, I know people have talked about debt and talked about debt as it's evil. But debt only becomes evil if you use it for the wrong reasons. If you take your mortgage to buy a house and you end up buying a car instead, yeah? Or you buy a flat and use the balance to get a car, that is bad. And that cannot be excused. But if you take your mortgage and you buy a house, you are better off than the person who decides that because they hate debt, they will start accumulating a pile of stones every month until they have enough stones to build a house. Yeah? And we've seen that happen with people who fear debt. They buy a truck load of stones, some sand, some cement. By the time they are constructing the house, the cement is already expired, and a few iron sheets. And 20 years down the line, they start constructing the house. Well, the smart one actually goes to the bank and says, here is my pay slips. Yeah? I expect to be working in the next 10, 20 years. And hence, my cash flow into the future is I can leverage on it to actually take a debt, buy a house today, and enjoy the benefits of that house forever. It's the same thing with countries. We've taken into account that SGR will be there for 100 years. Yeah? So the debt taken on the SGR cannot be paid for in the next 5 years. It will be paid by 5 generations of Kenyans over the next 100 years when the SGR will be used. And hence, we shouldn't be really worried about debt so long as a House, we can look at where is this debt being applied. And I believe in this House we have the reports that have been submitted in terms of what the debt has been used for. And the latest I think I tabled here was relating to this particular year, I think to March of this year. So members may want to look at those reports and say, have we used our debt as we planned to? And I'm sure the chair of Parliamentary Accounts Committee will also be telling us on what we've done, because we have 9 trillion that we have borrowed. But if we have 9 trillion of assets also to show, then we are good to go. And indeed, or 13 trillion to show. So it means that we have actually leveraged, we have borrowed 9 trillion and created assets worth 13 trillion. So we are 4 trillion better off on a simplistic basis. And hence, so I want to debunk the myth that borrowing is bad. Indeed, the IMF used to be one of the advocates of trying to tighten up and say countries should not borrow beyond 60%. And some of those economists, like Michael Blanchard, who is a retired IMF economist, is now the biggest advocate of companies or countries to borrow, so long as your rate of borrowing is less than the interest rates, than your projected growth. So it's a growth-adjusted interest rate. If your interest rate is lower than your growth rate, then you're encouraged to borrow and crank up your economy to grow at a faster rate than it's costing you to invest in it. And it's the same thing, like we are saying. The only reason we encourage members of parliament to borrow is because the mortgage rate is lower than the inflation rate. And hence, it makes sense to borrow today and have a house than trying to save your money or even using the crude ways of accumulation of stones to ever build that house. Now, the ideal situation would really be not even talking about the absolute figure of 1 trillion, an extra 1 trillion, would be a percentage of GDP. And hence, I'm looking at this as a very interim measure. And I'm hoping that the administration, because there will be an election and there will be a new administration coming in on 9th of August. And I would want to encourage them to actually come into this house. And we have, a rate-based cap that it's so much as a percentage of GDP or as a percentage of something else, so that as your GDP increases, so should your capacity to borrow. As you borrow, so should your GDP also increase, so that we are not limited. Like I imagine the member, TJ Kajwang, if he was told, you can only borrow 5 million regardless of your earning capacity. You're basically ignoring the earning capacity of that person and putting everyone at par. But when you say that you can borrow a certain percentage, which is what SACCOs do, you borrow based on your shares, right? So the more shares you have, the more capacity you have to borrow. And basically that should be the way it is. Anyway, it's a topic I love, and I can assure you that from where I sit, I encourage people to borrow. I encourage companies to borrow. Typically, we expect every company to only use 30% of the initial capital and use that as a lever to borrow another 70%, so that if you really want to invest 10 million shillings in a business, you only need to raise 3 million. There's 7 million that you can get from out there at a certain rate. And when you make profits, if you make a profit of 1 million shillings, you'll be making 1 million shillings produced by 3 million, not by 10. Because the 7 does not belong to you and you pay the interest on it. But your only contribution is you have 3 million, invest in a business that's worth 10 million. You make 1 million shillings in profit. It's not 10%. It's actually 1 million out of 3. So it's quite a good business. But if you didn't borrow and you were just stuck to your 3 million shillings a small kiosk, you will never get far. So I'll be happy to give some lessons on that offline. But especially since we don't know what will happen after the elections, and I'll be happy to consult, especially those who may not make it back. I'm sure I'll be here around with a few of the members who are here. The reason they are here today is they are confident they are coming back. Those who are not confident are panicking out there. So we pray to God that those who are here can actually make it back, so that we can continue these discussions for the common good of this country. Basically, I think I really don't want to go through a lot of that. I want to urge this House that we take this. It's not quite a bit appeal, no. It's something we have to do out of necessity to save the budget for this year, to save the generations to come, to ensure that the new administration can have a budget that they can implement as they figure out how their manifestos fit into what we have. And we don't constrict them that you can only work with 50% of a budget, which means nothing. And we'll actually be punishing Kenyans. So with those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that we actually amend to create that room for purposes of processing our budget, and with our proviso that come next year or at some point in the future, the new administration will come and rationalize what they really need into the future with the new House. I beg to move and ask the Honorable Kamket, the Chair of the Committee on Delegation, to second.
Honorable Kamket.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to second. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Delegated Legislation is properly seized of this matter. This matter, the position that has been as addressed by the Leader of Majority, is actually a compromise position. Because we, as he ably put it, Mr. Speaker, we find ourselves at a very unique position in terms of budget implementation. And after a lot of consultations, Mr. Speaker, it became necessary that we move away from the position of removing the ceiling based on, to have it based on a figure instead of a percentage of the GDP, which was being proposed as a world best practice in the current situation, in the current dispensation, economic dispensation of the world. But, Mr. Speaker, honorable members were a bit uncomfortable with the ceiling based on the GDP, ratio of the GDP, because there were conflicting figures on the actual size. So therefore, it became necessary that instead of basing it on a non-figure, it became necessary that instead of basing it on the GDP, we just put an open limit that everybody can see that the debt ceiling should not exceed 10 trillion shillings. And we thought as a committee that was the best way to go. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to second. I thank you.
Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that pursuant to the provision of Section 50, subsection 2 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, this House approves the Public Finance Management National Government Amendment Regulations of 2022, published as legal notice number 89 of 26 May 2022, thus approving the amendment made to the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations of 2015, being the principal regulations in Regulation 26, Subregulation 1, by deleting paragraph C and substituting therefore the following paragraph. C, pursuant to provision of Section 50, subsection 2 of the Act, the public debt shall not exceed 10 trillion shillings. Member for Kikuyu, Honorable Shungwa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, thank you to the Honorable Angonyi for the correction. Honorable Speaker, I beg to rise to oppose this particular motion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the issue of public debt, and I understand what the Leader of Majority is saying, and I know where the Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee sits. But, Honorable Speaker, the issue of public debt is not something that we ought to be justifying to ourselves, to appease ourselves, because it is a burden that we are laying on the shoulders of the Kenyan people. And that burden, Speaker, as much as I heard His Excellency the President the other day on Madaraka Day telling us that debt is simply us utilizing other people's money. But, Honorable Speaker, as much as we are utilizing other people's money, it is not money that we are getting as a grant or as a gift from those other people. It is those other nations' taxpayers that are giving us money to invest in productive sectors of our economy, Honorable Speaker, and at the end of the day, use our taxpayers' money to repay. And therefore, as we lay more burdens to the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker, as the people's representatives, I am obliged to object to the raising of this debt ceiling, Honorable Speaker. And it tells you the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the National Treasury today is a man who clearly has no understanding of what he is doing. The Honorable Kamket has just told you that initially they had brought us a percentage. And if you look at the percentage, they were giving a percentage as much as it was on NPV terms of our GDP at 55%. However much you try to cook GDP on NPV terms at 55%, we would still be below the 9 trillion debt that we have today, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, this slight or huge variation to 10 trillion shillings will be a burden to the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, it is outside what this House has approved in our medium-term debt strategy paper. Beyond that, Honorable Speaker, this House, and I have chaired the Budget and Appropriations Committee, so I speak from a point of knowledge, that we have demanded from the National Treasury that every year, before, and there have been resolutions in this House, Honorable Speaker, before you tell us how much you are borrowing, earmark for us the specific projects that you intend to utilize that public debt on. Today, Honorable Speaker, we are increasing our debt to 10 trillion shillings, and we cannot earmark projects where this money will go into. Even the appropriations bill we'll do today, we'll be discussing today, Honorable Speaker. If you look at the estimates that are there is nothing specific on what specific projects will be financed using public debt. Honorable Speaker, the greatest danger, we are also, I think in the course of today, Honorable Speaker, if I look at the order paper, bound to discuss the supplementary estimates too, at the end of the financial year, Honorable Speaker, or at the tail end of the financial year. And I see the chairman of budget winking at me because he knows I know what I'm speaking about. Honorable Speaker, the reason why we are doing a supplementary estimate too is because we spend out of the budget, Honorable Speaker. It is the spending out of the budget, and I take great exception to what the leader of majority was saying, that we are spending in very good things that are for the benefit of the country. Honorable Speaker, you beg to ask yourself, when you spend things that are out of the budget cycle, you will end up borrowing. And this is a government, this is a cabinet secretary in charge of the National Treasury who has a very high aptitude, because he cannot stand up to his president to tell his president that sprucing up public parks in a country where people are dying out of hunger is not a priority, Honorable Speaker. And budgeting is about priorities, Honorable Speaker. How much money have we spent sprucing up Uhuru Park? How much money are we spending to spruce up Uhuru Gardens? And I don't know why they're all Uhuru. Honorable Speaker, in fact, I would dare propose that one of these fine days, we should rename Uhuru Gardens to Freedom Gardens. Honorable Speaker, I am not saying this because I have anything against anybody, but I have a problem when we spend money in non-priority areas and more so spend public debt. You cannot tell us that the Nairobi Expressway, Honorable Speaker, that we have spent it, and His Excellency the President must shy away from telling the people of Kenya on national days things that are not true. That the Nairobi Expressway has not spent a coin of our taxpayers' money. Honorable Speaker, I know for a fact this expressway has not spent not less than 20 billion Kenya shillings of taxpayers' money. And it is therefore wrong for the president to purport that the expressway, which Kenyans are now paying for, and paying to companies that we cannot tell who owns them. Look at the CR2 of the company that is managing the expressway, Honorable Speaker, a company that is registered in Dubai, Honorable Speaker, as a single shareholder. The Chinese on that CR12, and I've seen it, Honorable Speaker, are mere proxies. Honorable Speaker, these are issues that if we as a parliament are shy from discussing, Honorable Speaker, and we sit here today and approve a debt of 10 trillion shillings, we are killing Kenyans with a burden that they cannot bear. It is okay to borrow. and I have said this before, but a nation and even ourselves, I heard the leader of majority saying that if you have the capacity to take up a mortgage of 5 million shillings and you're able to pay, well, go ahead. Mr. Speaker, today, this country is not able to repay its own debt. Our CFS, Honorable Speaker, those in the National Treasury will tell you, this January, they had to borrow from the domestic market to be able to finance our public debt, Honorable Speaker. And that is a danger that we are living in. But we are dealing with a regime and people who have no aptitude to think about the ordinary Kenyan who is suffering, Honorable Speaker. It is burdens that we are laying on the Kenyan people. How I wish we were more innovative in terms of being able to expand our tax base by simply expanding our bottom. And that is why I don't know why they get jittery when they talk about bottom up. Bottom up simply means that we will expand our tax base at the bottom of the pyramid, the economic pyramid, Speaker, so that we get more taxpayers into the tax net. Honorable Speaker, we must also reform our KRA. I do not know why today, Honorable Speaker, KRA, if you speak to DG Mburu, he will tell you for the last 3 years, he has not been able to recruit new staff. Honorable Speaker, when we gave them money in 2019, I think 2019-2020 budget, the first supplementary after I left the seat of chair budget, that money was all removed. KRA today is an institution today that we must restructure and renew so that even part of the money they are collecting from taxpayers is done as a percentage of what they collect. We must recapitalize or rather empower KRA in terms of the amount of money that they get and maybe probably give them something close to 5 or 7.5% of the revenues they collect so that we encourage them to pay their staff better, be able to recruit more people, and be able to collect more money from taxpayers. There are very many people in this country who do not pay taxes, Honorable Speaker. But what we are confronted with today is a regime that is more intent on killing business, Honorable Speaker, than encouraging taxpayers. Today, Honorable Speaker, if you go to Naivasha, a thriving business that was being run by the lady called Tabitha Karanja, simply because Keroche Brewery is, Honorable Speaker, simply because and out of her political affiliation, Honorable Speaker, that factory today is closed down, rendering close to 3,000 people, taxpayers, jobless, Honorable Speaker. You go to Thika, Honorable Speaker, the factory that was run by Humphrey Kariuki, that employed close to 5,000 people, has been shut down. Honorable Speaker, I want to say as I conclude, because I see time is over, that we must empower KRA to collect more revenue. We must rebuild our economy from the bottom up, and I rise to vehemently, Mr. Speaker, oppose the increment or the variation of this public debt ceiling, because it will be a further burden to the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to oppose.
Honorable Wandai.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to congratulate Senator Falhada for this timely statement. Madam Speaker, there was a joke that was going around that there is one of the presidential candidates that says if he become the president, he will plan something along the highway to make it high, not the highway express. Madam Speaker, I want to, there was a statement that I brought last week on the repair on under the original road. And I remember, Madam Speaker, that they were seeking additional 9 billion. And we are aware the cost of expressway rose up to 81 billion, Madam Speaker. In as much as we celebrate this mega project, the expressway, in terms of order of the city, in terms of decongestion of the city, in terms of the value, economic value, but we must also look at the effects, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I agree, it will be inhuman to this expressway, all of us will pay, whether we like it or not. We will pay. The people who brought the money, the toll fees that we pay, Madam Speaker, the Kenyans, who even might never use that expressway, like my village where I come from in Mosoriat, or Kakamega, somewhere in Butere, Madam Speaker, they might not even be able to pay. The little respect that the government can do is to allow emergency services to use. How do you ambulance? Somebody is being rushed to get medical attention. Somebody maybe there is a fire, and there are so many fire incidences in this city, Madam Speaker. Somebody is being rushed to hospital. There are so many emergencies that I think they should access the expressway to be toll-free, Madam Speaker. They should not be levied any charge, because that is the reason there is an expressway, so that when somebody is being rushed, for example, from Machakos, Madam Speaker, to an emergency in Kenyatta National Hospital, this is an ordinary mortal, Madam Speaker, the whole police of this country. And therefore, in fact, my only concern, Madam Speaker, on this point is that I don't know where the designers decided that they should not be exit within the city, because it means there should be an exit within the city, so that if somebody is brought from Machakos or Mulolongo being taken to Kenyatta National Hospital, there should be an exit within this Uhuru Highway, Madam Speaker, so that ambulance can exit either to Nairobi Hospital, to Kenyatta National Hospital, or if there is a fire incident within Kikomba or within this river road within the city, if the fire engine, and I'm told there is a fire station that was built along Mulolongo, another one, additional, I don't know whether it's complete or not, but it should be able to access within the city through the expressway. So even the designers, Madam Speaker, failed in looking at those aspects. I don't know what did they want to achieve. Was it because the money was not enough, or they needed additional funds to ensure there is an exit within the city? But Madam Speaker, if you use expressway, for example, you are supposed to preside the House at 2:30. It means that you might end up going to Westlands, then come back through the same jam that you are avoiding. So these emergencies, Madam Speaker, is that these designs that was done, Madam Speaker, should be able to allow access emergency. The designs, Madam Speaker, even as such as security, Madam Speaker. I have seen there are also cameras, but we are worried, Madam Speaker, that the way it has been designed, I hope Parliament will build a high or bulletproof, Madam Speaker, up there, so that you don't...
Senator, there is a point of order from Senator Haji Faria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's just a point of information. There is an exit in Museum Hill. You don't have to go all the way to Westlands. I just wanted to inform my brother like that.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, by my recollection, Museum Hill is still very far. We wanted something that is within, for example, if you are to rush somebody from Mulolongo all the way to Kenyatta National Hospital, by the time you are exiting through Museum Hill, you come again, you might experience jam that will make it hard for you to access Kenyatta National Hospital. But I'm just requesting, of course there are designs that were done, but I don't know why they didn't create a design that can access the CBD, the Central Business District of Nairobi, so that it becomes easy to access, because you can imagine, Speaker, if you have to go to Museum Hill and come all the way back. But I hope those are contractors, those are issues that contractors can be told to sort out at no expense to the taxpayer. Finally, Madam Speaker, and therefore this issue of emergency, we didn't need to bring to this level, Madam Speaker. I expected the designers, the policymakers, the supervisor who is Kenya, and Kenya is sleeping on the job. Because these are some of the things that Kenya should have handled at the lowest level through the Ministry of Transport, and say, let us be toll free. Let ambulances, let fire engines, and also security, the police, Madam Speaker. You can imagine if the police are driving all the way from Mombasa Road and they want to attend a security threat within the CBD or within Westlands, they have to pay. It is dangerous. By the time they are paying toll fees, something which is the security has threatened, Madam Speaker. Finally, on the comment is that, Madam Speaker, you realize that the expressway is high. We need also to be assured of the security of Parliament buildings, Madam Speaker. And it's not even about us, it is about the seat of Parliament, the seat of authority. Because if anything happens, or a sniper or any security threat goes up there because they are up above Parliament, it can become a threat to Parliament. It's not about us, it's about the authority that Parliament is envisaged across the world. So those are some of the issues that were forgotten by the designers of Expressway, although the Expressway went up beyond that was conceived during Kibaki regime of around 30-something billion, Madam Speaker, and thank God you are the minister, and then within that cabinet, now it has risen to 81 billion, Madam Speaker. So these are some of the issues that maybe somebody somewhere was busy doing something until he forgets some of these infrastructural rectification. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Wako Naomi Jilo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important statement by Senator Falhada. I want to congratulate her for coming up with that statement, which is very timely. Madam Speaker, I just want to say that Nairobi Expressway is one of the major development that has taken place in recent years. And any development is to improve the lifestyle of its citizen. And it is our expectation that the designers will be able to look at it and see how they can improve so that it can fit the needs of our people. Madam Speaker, Nairobi is well known for traffic jam, and especially during the rush hour. And unless the designers or the planners seriously plan, then we may not be able to help our people. The other thing is about the charges. As you know, we are facing a lot of economical challenges. People have no funds, and even the people who are living in the city are having some financial challenges. If that can also be reviewed so that many Kenyans can afford, then that can really